All right. I mean, it's a tough challenge. I stand between you and the buffet. There will be wine, I know, and cheese. I thought I make it a little bit, start sharing. Lively. There will be pictures with colors, no comics. And I want to make some controversial claims. The first is that I can't start this thing here. Jesus, where do we have? Yeah, I just continue talking. I mean, I press hard on it. Controversial claims. This paper that is also with Dean. Dean, you shouldn't disappear. I mean, you can also jump in. This is a joint project with Serafine Merz. She's in Melbourne now, Dean Schäfer, and myself. Oops. Maybe we need to get out. So, and it's about detecting democratic decline. First controversial claim is language matters. And then now you would say, after having listened to at least 2 or 3 presentations, making exactly the same point, it is not true if you look outside of this room and investigate theories of democratic consolidation. And I was much inspired by an article by Andreas Schädler, who captured a feeling that I also had, which was that if you live in Hungary and you are foul-mouthed by the head of government for decades on all principles that liberal democracy stands for, I felt this can't be without consequences. But then I went into the classroom and I taught theories of consolidation. It was all about structures, institutions. If you get them right, then it doesn't matter who is in office. So there was something off. And we should have read Juan Linz, who wrote about democratic decline or how democracies break down. And he talked about disloyal actors and so on. So this is one sort of aim they have. What? Yes. Okay, help of IT. I don't know. It's just a PDF. The second one is, it's about illiberalism. It's not about populism and also not about polarization, the topics that we have been discussing today. I think the problem for democracy, for liberal democracy, is the attack on its liberal part. And maybe polarization and populism is a strategy to attack it. But the real indicator for democratic decline is whether it turns illiberal. And so this whole speak of illiberal democracy is, of course, an oxymoron. And therefore, what you're going to see is a measure of illiberal discourse, not polarized discourse or populist discourse. And the third one, this goes to Michael Koppich, is we will show how we can do what Wiedem is doing with much less money and faster. So we can detect democratic decline with a bunch of 3 people who have scraped 500,000 speeches and sort of run it through some trained models. And now I would need my slides in a sense, but what can we do? So this is what I'm going to do. So what is it that we did? We focus on the speeches of heads of government across the globe. I think it's 120 something over the last 25 years. And we collected over something such and such 100,000 and split them into meaningful paragraphs. I think this is about 500,000 of those paragraphs. And then we scale them on an illiberal, liberal scale. By the way, I should say all those who went to the Department of Seminar Political Science, I apologize, it's exactly the same talk. But to our defense, it's since half a year, it's with comparative political studies in review. I mean, this is, we couldn't, it's not our fault, Dean, is it so? So we scale this, and some sort of nuance to this. It's not a one-dimensional scale, but we say that liberal or illiberal can come in either an exclusionary discourse or a concentration discourse. So you exclude populations or in the society. This is sort of one form of illiberal discourse, or you concentrate power. You say we are the party and we hold the purse, and so these are 2 different forms of illiberal discourse. Of course, the counterpart to this is inclusionary discourse and dispersion. So the embracing of dispersion of power, so that division of power and so on and so forth. And I'm still trying to gain some time to get the slides here up. I mean, this is not the pictures will come in a second. One problem, and I got myself only late in my career into this analyzing speech or focusing on language, but one fundamental problem seems to be to show that what people say translates into action. So I mean, I'm not even talking about causal identification here, but also conceptually, you would say, well, this is just lip service or, facade, and empirically showing that the way Trump speaks, the way Orban speaks, really has political consequences. It's not a trivial task. So what we came up with is, so how does it affect democracy? It's funny, I see something different here. Are you sharing it, Steen?
Yes, I found a way to share it. So just let me know and I can move through it.
I'm at slide 6. Yeah. Yes, that's good. So this, and we don't test this really, so I don't want to focus too much on it, but discourse by those actors who should sort of embody the values of the political regime, and if sort of there's a disjoint between sort of there being liberal institutions and you talk like an illiberal, this means to institutions that they hollow out or they become facades or they used to accumulate power. Then at the different level, parties, we either have declining membership or become more marginalized or polarized. And it has an effect on citizens. And there was just a nice presentation, I think, in Outlib or at DI, where they had survey experiments showing something like this, that citizens, but when being exposed to such discourses, do change their attitudes towards democracy. So this is something, so this is a research agenda to follow up on all these hypotheses. We really have only tentative answers to this in the paper that I'm presenting. And if I'm swap one further, now comes the first nice picture. This is the coverage, as I said before, many speeches over a long period of time, all sorts of regimes. So from Kim Jong-un to Obama, everybody is in our data set, to also show you the variety of discourses and the face validity of our scale, to which I'm coming in a second. One more slide, Dean. So one innovation, I think, at least to me, it was an innovation, is the way we use the modern tools, of computational tools to both harvest the data, which, I make it sound so simple, but Dean has put a lot of effort. But once we have done it, I think it can be replicated quite easily. That's why I'm saying it's cheaper than VDEM. But it's the interaction between humans and AI. So we first defined the coding criteria and then basically told ChatGPT, can you now identify the most glaring examples of liberal speech and illiberal speech based on the criteria that we have given to ChatGPT. So we had a subset of these many speeches with which we then sort of trained. I mean, there were some coders who verified that these are really the ones that we want. And then we have trained these BERT models and we applied this to the entire spectrum of the entire data set of speeches to classify each speech or each speaker as either liberal or illiberal on a scale. And then as a last step, and this is our claim, and you tell me if we have succeeded, we want to show that, or want to see whether this is an early warning sign of democratic decline. Can we say that if in a liberal democracy, somebody starts to speak illiberal, democratic breakdown follows unless you vote him out of office? And I think we show this. Next slide, please. Okay. This is too much text. This is, I can share this with you. These are the instructions that we gave to, actually that comes, if you go one slide more, and one more, these are the instructions that we gave, to ChatGPT. You can go through it. I'm not going to read it, but it gave then scores to speeches, and we took the rarest examples, so to train our custom-made models. Whenever I say something very stupid, Dean, you just sump in. But please go ahead for the next slide. So this is the result. And this is just one of, one example. This is the presidents of the United States on our 2 dimensions. So the exclusion-inclusion dimension and the concentration power dispersion. And the different colors mean different presidents. If the dots are low, means this is rather liberal. You see it on the y-axis. And then we have President Trump, clearly sticking out. I mean, there are some nuances to it you want to, I mean, you would say, why would I need to do all this work? We all know this, but to show this comparatively also across different countries and how high is now Trump illiberal compared to Kim Jong-un, sort of, this is not, we can show you. But what you also see is here, for instance, Biden speaks much more illiberal than the previous. And so there is a lot of research agendas analyzing this huge data that we have amassed here. Next slide. Another, can you move one further? Oh, I think he froze. Oh, God. Yes. So if he weren't frozen, we would see Erdogan. No, that went too far. Okay. What do we have? Oh, that's a new set of slides. Anyway, so what you see here is Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. I have here Erdogan. I wanted to just show you how one single speaker over time can become more illiberal and so on. So if you want to play around yourself with this, there is a Shiny app which I would have shown you, and Dean would, if you would not have internet connections, where you can select your country, you select the time span that you want to analyze, and it creates these pictures. And, whoa. Oh, Dean, you're back. I had Turkey here, but yes, this is Erdogan, and I also praised our Shiny app, which I had prepared here, but I can't share. But we can share the link at the end of the presentation, I think. If we move to the spaghetti graph, Dean. So this doesn't tell us anything about how a speech is related to democratic decline. So what is this picture showing? I can't move how did you do this with this pointer here? It was also, it's also not working. Yeah, it just vibrates. Oh. Yeah, but it's now on. Yeah, I can highlight this screen now. Anyway, so what it shows. Each line is a country, and it is the electoral democracy index score. So if it goes down, means democracy goes down. If we are right in saying that if if government leaders start speaking illiberally, we should see a decline. And you see the onset of illiberal speak with these red dots, and focus maybe on Hungary. So Hungary in 2002 is first recorded in our measure for this as being an illiberal speaker, and then comes a period of 3 years preceding the decline, and then it should decline, and it does with some time lag. And there is variation. For some, the time lag between start of a liberal speech and decline is shorter, but for most, where we have onset of illiberal speak, there is a decline. And, there are some oddballs out. Look at Armenia, for instance. They start speaking illiberally and then they become democratic. There we have all sorts of idiosyncratic reasons for this. But ideal, typically, you would see a red dot and then things go down. In tendency, that's what's going on. Is this causally identified? I doubt. So we tried a little bit harder and, oh no. Yes. What if we threw out Dean from the call and then I could share? Hey, no, that's something different. That's not mine, but it's also not what I see here.
I'm sharing. I've turned off my camera, so that should help with the lag.
Right. Then maybe you can walk us through this graph because it's different from the one that I have here. It's about the causal identification.
Do you want something else? Sorry.
One before, I think, we had this slide 19. But they have a different set.
No.
Oh, 17, 16? Well, okay, it doesn't matter. So what we did was we had some structural equation modeling, controlling for all sorts of other things that could predict, I mean, a bit along the lines that we had at the very beginning of this conference today, of what could cause democratic decline and holding constant for all these things, we do find that our measure of illiberal speech, especially if you combine the two dimensions, is a statistically significant predictor for things like polarization of society, polarization of parties, and democratic decline as measured with the measure that we have shown before. It does not predict mobilization for autocracy, but this is preliminary research in this direction. So conclusion, and actually we're almost in time. Illiberal discourse signals democratic decline. You know, people say, okay, but we started with this project 4 years ago where people didn't believe us. Language matters, and political regime change. The political regime change theories need to be updated. Thanks.